This is not a subject that's going to win me any sort of popularity contest. Oh, gosh. I don't like saying things that make people feel uncomfortable. But that's going to be today's entire episode. Hi, welcome to the Lovely Humans Club podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Wolford, and today we're going to be talking about endocrine disruptors. Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to give a quick shout out to this person who left a review over on Apple Podcasts, Wit Loves. She says, I love all of Jamie's content, and this one does not fall short. She's so authentic, true, and hilarious. I feel a connection to Jamie in the depths of the internet, and that feels like a true gem and gift. Looking forward to more episodes. Wait, you guys, I love you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you stick around after this episode because this one's going to be heavy, okay? But if you would like to be featured in the next episode, please feel free to leave a review wherever you can. And maybe I'll read yours next. Wait, I adore you to pieces. Thanks, Angel Baby Love Nugget. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. Real quick disclaimer, we're about to unpack some things. And if you're not in the state of mind really to do a deep dive into some of this, don't listen to this episode right now. You could totally come back to this later. I'm going to do my best to really reassure you and make this as lighthearted as possible. And there will be solutions at the end, I promise, but we kind of need to get through the darkness to see the light at the other end of this tunnel. And endocrine disruptors, first of all, is a really hard term to say. So they're also known as endocrine disrupting chemicals, EDCs. So when prudent, I will shorten the term so I don't keep fumbling over my words or having to edit myself, because endocrine disruptors is somehow a tongue twister for me. Here's what this episode is going to cover. If you're watching the video version of this, I'm going to be looking over at my notes so I don't miss anything. What are endocrine disruptors? How do people encounter EDCs? Where can they be found? And what do they do to the human body? And once you know all this information, what are you supposed to do moving forward? I'm going to do my best to remember to include all of these links that I'm referring to in this podcast, because either in the show notes or in the description of the YouTube video, because I think it's really important to trust but verify, right? So you can see that I'm reading directly from these websites, but you should probably go check them out as well. So first and foremost, what are EDCs, endocrine disruptors? According to endocrine.org, which is Endocrine Society, it's a group of researchers and clinicians. This program has been around for 100 years. Long story short, according to my findings, they seem to know what they're talking about, especially if they have the website address of endocrine.org. Just makes it seem more legit, you know what I mean? According to endocrine.org, endocrine-disrupting chemicals, EDCs, are substances in the environment, air, soil, or water supply, food sources, personal care products, and manufactured products that interfere with the normal function of your body's endocrine system. Since EDCs come from many different sources, people are exposed in several ways, including the air we breathe, the food we eat, and the water we drink. EDCs also can enter the body through the skin. Are you excited yet? Are you starting to freak out a little bit? Yeah, that was my first experience with this. Now, I'm going to include this at the top. Please remember, this is not intended to scare you. It's just meant to educate you. I want you to be empowered about the decisions that you're making with your body and around your body, especially because recently I did an entire podcast on my fertility journey, and figuring out the whole science behind endocrine disruptors and EDCs and what this looks like and how it affects fertility was a really big part of my journey. So I figured you guys deserved an entire episode of what I dug into and what I found. And so please do not be scared by this. Again, if you're not in the right mental headspace for this, feel free to skip this episode or come back to it later. It will always be here. You can always find it later. But for those that are in the trenches of fertility or thyroid issues or a whole host of health conditions, this could be really empowering for you in your health journey. So that's why I really want to make this podcast. The National Institute of Health regards these 10 as the most common, but there could be anywhere near 1,000 endocrine disrupting chemicals according to the Endocrine Society. But we're going to go ahead and jump into the top 10, I think. Yeah, top 10 ones that NIH recognizes. First one is atrazine. It's one of the most commonly applied herbicides in the world, often used to control weeds in corn, sorghum, and sugarcane crops. Now, this one's a huge reason why we specifically eat organic, that and glyphosate. But glyphosate is its own beast. Technically, it's not an endocrine disruptor, but that's probably a subject for another time. So while organic farming does, quote, use, I'm using finger quotes if you can't see me, herbicides and pesticides, they use organic versions of it, where non-organic or commercial or conventional farming uses herbicides and pesticides directly on top of the plants in the soil to kill off unwanted weeds that would affect their harvest, get rid of any insects that would get in there and kind of really mess up their harvest. Obviously, they want to protect their investment, right? And I'm going to pause really briefly right here. Now, this might not be the complete opportune time to stop and say this, but I want to recognize right now that this is a very, cutting out any EDCs is a very privileged thing to be able to do. There are a lot of simple and affordable swaps. I will talk about those in just a little bit, but it is a privileged thing to say that we try to eat organic as often as possible. It is a privileged thing to say that I try to cook from scratch as often as possible because I have the time to do that. A lot of people don't. It is a privileged thing to purchase the higher end skincare products or hair care products that are labeled clean or have less toxins in them. It's so much more affordable to buy things just straight off the shelf without reading the labels and without worrying about it. So I understand that by talking about the subject, it kind of opens up a catch-22 situation, especially for those that are trying to really watch their finances. So that's why I think that it's a nuanced conversation. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all approach. I think you need to be really careful and do not let yourself get bogged down by this. I think you need to be really careful and really strategic about the swaps that you're making, and don't do it all at once, right? And do what you can afford when you can afford it. Okay, so back to the list. Atrazine, used on most commercial farming. It's the most common herbicide. Bisphenol A, BPA. So basically, it's used to make polycarbonate plastics and epoxy resins. It's used in manufacturing, food packaging, toys, and other applications. It could be found in the lining of some canned goods, beverages. But I will say, even if you find something that says BPA free, they've just replaced it with something else. So oftentimes, this is just plastic. Just plastic. Plastic cups, plastic water bottles, plastic toys, plastic. Dioxins are a byproduct of certain manufacturing processes, such as herbicide production and paper bleaching. They can be released into the air from waste burning and wildfires. Perchlorate is a colorless salt manufactured and used as an industrial chemical to make rockets, explosives, and fireworks, which can be found in some groundwater. Per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, PFAS, are a large group of chemicals used widely in industrial application, such as firefighting foam, nonstick pans, paper, and textile coatings. That's important. Firefighting foam, nonstick pans, paper, and textile coatings, so the coating on clothing. Phthalates are a large group of compounds used as liquid plasticizers. They are found in hundreds of products, including some food packaging, cosmetics, fragrances, children's toys, and medical device tubing. Cosmetics that may contain phthalates include nail polish, hairspray, aftershave lotion, cleanser, and shampoo. That one's heavy, especially medical tubing. What do you do? What do you do? I'm going to take this opportunity for another aside because I feel like my thoughts are coming to me as this list is going. I'm a firm believer that God gave us really good filters. And I think that there is a time and a place where you just got to do what you got to do. I told my mom once when my husband was out of town, I was out of diapers, I just ran out of dishwasher detergent, and Amelia was a newborn. I mean, she was less than 6 weeks old, but it was one of his dearest friends' bachelor weekend. So of course we weren't going to say no to that. I shoved him out the door. But my mom's like, hey, what dishwasher detergent do you get? And I told her, she calls me, she goes, hey, I can't find it. I said, just pick one. You can't be crunchy in a crisis, okay? You can't be crunchy in a crisis. If you have moments where you're stressed out or moments where something big and medical is happening or something's going on in the family, you cannot be crunchy in a crisis. You just got to put food in your mouth and put one foot in front of the other. Phytoestrogens can be naturally occurring substances with hormone-like activity found in some plants. They may have a similar effect to estrogen produced by the body. Soy foods, for example, contain phytoestrogens. I had a conversation with my sister probably within the last year or so where I told her, I'm like, hey, yeah, soy milk is really estrogenic. I don't know why the conversation came about and we were talking about it. And she was like, what? Like, yeah, soy milk can cause excess estrogen in the body or mimic excess estrogen in the body. And two of her boys they can't do dairy and they've been on soy milk their entire lives. And I didn't even think about it when I said it. And she was like, are you kidding? My boys? I've been just like, they've literally been drinking soy milk for like one of them over a decade now. That's like his milk of preference. You mean to tell me that that's estrogenic? Yeah. And there's a lot of soy products and a lot of things, soy byproducts, etc. So soy can really affect your estrogen levels. Polybrominated diphenyl ethers, PBDE, are used to make flame retardants for products such as furniture foam and carpet. Polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs, were used to make electrical equipment such as transformers and are in hydraulic fluids, heat transfer fluids, lubricants, and plasticizers. PCBs were mass-produced globally until they were banned in 1979. Triclosan is an ingredient that was previously added to some antimicrobial and personal care products like liquid body wash and soaps. So if you're following the bouncing ball, I just listed off basically everything, right? Could be the couch that you're sitting on, the carpet under your feet. Could be the paint you used on your walls. Could be the skincare that you used this morning, or your makeup, or mascara, your hair products, the clothing that you purchased, the soy milk in your fridge. And we need to take a moment and recognize how freaking heavy that is, dude. So how do we come in contact with EDCs? Well, it could be through food, beverages, pesticides, cosmetics, basically through your diet, your skin, the air, or your water. Even low doses of endocrine disrupting chemicals may be unsafe. The body's normal endocrine functioning involves very small changes in hormone levels. This is again still from the NIH. Yet we know even these small changes can cause significant developmental and biological effects. This observation leads scientists to think that endocrine disrupting chemical exposures, even at low amounts, can alter the body's sensitive system and lead to health problems. When absorbed into the body, remember, through the air, through our skin, through what we eat or what we drink, an endocrine disruptor can decrease or increase normal hormone levels, mimic the body's natural hormones, or alter the natural production of hormones. What does that mean? So they mess with your hormone levels, they copy your hormones and take their place, right? In the last podcast, I said that you've got a receptor in your body, and sometimes the endocrine disruptor will act like the key to the lock and block that receptor from receiving your natural hormones or alter the natural production of hormones. So far, I've listed a whole lot of theoretical bad, right? Theoretically, it's bad for you, right? What does that mean for me? What if it's not affecting me? Well, that's great. If you can't see any results from any of these items, you don't really have to change anything. Right now, as I'm recording this, I am surrounded by EDCs, surrounded by them. And you know what? I can't change any of that. I'm really not going to worry about it. I'm going to do what I can and enjoy my life to the fullest. The makeup I put on my face before recording this, EDCs, all up in this business, okay? But I am making an informed choice. And I think it's important that you are informed so you can make the same choice as well. Because circling back to what I said earlier, I really do think that God gave us really good filters. We just have to be kind to them, right? So what do these EDCs do to the body? Linked to human health issues related to sperm quality, fertility, abnormalities in sex organs, endometriosis. How many women on the internet do you know that are talking about endometriosis right now? Excess estrogen in the body. Early puberty, nervous system function, immune function, cancers, breathing problems, metabolic issues, obesity, heart health, growth, neurological and learning disabilities, and more. There's more to the list. What do we do? Can we breathe? Can we drink things? Can I put on this pair of pants? Can I go do these things? What do we do? Now, we started this entire journey probably when Silas was about 1.5. So he's 7 now. So it's been about 5.5, maybe 6 years. That's when we started trying for baby number 4, which joke's on us, ended up taking several years anyways. But I was like, let's just start swapping things over. We can afford to start buying organic now. Let's start doing that, which also coincided with me being a lot more particular about meal planning. Because if we're going to spend more on food because we wanted a different quality of food, then I wanted to make sure it didn't go bad in the fridge. And I wanted to make sure we actually ate it. So that's why I do meal planning. That's why I do monthly meal planning and weekly meal planning. Because if I'm going to spend that amount of money on food, it is not going to freaking waste. Okay? So it got dark. For me. It's everywhere. It's in everything. And there was a spiritual journey that coincided with this. Okay, I got to the point where I'm like, God gave us really good filters. But then I also realized that by cutting out a lot of these endocrine disruptors, I was also simultaneously fulfilling my dream of becoming Laura Ingalls Wilder. Hear me out for a second. If it's as close to what the Lord made originally, so it hasn't been modified, it hasn't been sprayed on, then it's likely going to be a lot better for your body. So if I grow something in my garden, hello, I am Prairie Woman, hear me roar, it's going to be better for my body than something that I buy from a grocery store. If I store it in gorgeous, aesthetically pleasing glass jars, like the apothecary little person that I am, it's going to be better for my body than when I store it in plastic. If I wear cotton or linen or wool, it's going to be better for my body than polyester, which is literally plastic. If I buy secondhand, it's going to be better for my family than it is if I bought something brand new. All of these things that I was drawn towards were also inherently lower in EDCs. So there's really something primal about this, where you're just like, okay, so basically if I just get it down to homemade stuff that I could buy at my local, oh my gosh, what's it called? Farmer's market. Stuff that I buy at my local farmer's market. Maybe someone around me makes soap instead of buying something off of Amazon. All of these things that end up being really, really beneficial to your local economy, to your body, to how you store things. And it's all also inherently reusable and better for the planet, because when you're using non-toxic products on your body that then goes back into the water system, you're contributing cleaner stuff. You know what I mean? So while the impetus for this is very stressful, And it's like, oh my gosh, there's chemicals everywhere. Yeah, but also, everything literally your body's made up of chemicals, okay? So let's take that all with a grain of salt. But it does feel like, oh my gosh, we're being bombarded by these things that are really bad for us everywhere. Yeah, but look what we can do if we push ourselves and we stretch a little bit. We can benefit the local economy by shopping local, by thrifting, by storing things in glass and not one-time use plastics, by buying furniture off of Facebook Marketplace. So the VOCs and the flame retardants, a lot of those chemicals might have, off-gassed at that point. So I guess for me, I kind of turned it into a game. Yeah. Like, how crunchy can I take this? How many things can I turn from like a plastic one-use packaging to a gorgeous mason jar or an heirloom piece style pitcher, or, switching away from plastic utensils, which we still have quite a few of those, over to wood utensils that feel like so, I don't know about you, but like when I use a wooden spoon, you just can't talk to me. Okay. Like I have transcended I swear I'm a better wife, I'm a better mother, and I'm a better cook when I use wooden spoons, okay? They're fantastic. So what can you do with this information? First of all, baby steps. You need to take baby steps. Do not switch over everything at once. Wait until a bottle runs out and swap it out for something cleaner, okay? Or pick a room in your house and start there. Or pick a food group and switch it over to organic. Or switch to dried instead of canned goods, which, by the way, I definitely want to make sure I'm not a total hypocrite here. I have tons of canned goods in my pantry right now because honestly, that's a swap that we've been willing to take. I would rather have organic diced tomatoes in a can, and I'll switch when I find the glass alternative. I'd rather do that for the ease of putting together delicious meals for my family instead of boiling and peeling the tomatoes every time I want to make some sort of, Spanish rice or pasta sauce or whatever I use diced tomatoes in. I am consciously making that choice. But switching over bit by bit is going to make your life astronomically easier. The second thing you want to do is learn how to read labels. As you're making these switches, you're going to want to know what to look for. And I do have a list of chemicals that I'll leave in the show notes or the description of this. If you want to go over that, I find it very overwhelming, to be perfectly honest with you. It's so many letters in each word that I'm like, I don't know what this means. It's just a lot. So when we were switching over some food stuff, I told my dad, if I can't read it, I can't eat it. If I can't read it, I can't eat it. And that kind of became a really good barometer for me for a lot of things moving forward in this category. But if you do want to see what those chemicals are that you want to avoid, I will leave that linked. You can also download an app called Yuka, Y-U-K-A, Yuka. And that's a fantastic thing that you can use to scan products. Also, EWG.org, the Environmental Working Group. They have the Dirty Dozen, the Clean 15. Those are great things to follow as you're making some food swaps. But if you are reading labels, think triple SPD. Okay. So what does that mean? You're going to want to look for scents. Any sort of perfumes and fragrances, EDC. Second S would be SUDS. Any surfactants, sodium lauryl sulfate, things that end or have those similar words to them. Again, those will be included in the giant list of chemicals. We are so used to having a really satisfying suds when we wash our hair, when we wash our hands, when we clean dishes. But what we don't realize is the sud making factor of that is an endocrine disrupting chemical. Sunscreen specifically. There are a lot of chemicals in sunscreen, especially the spray version. Okay. So I hate to break it to you. And I'm going to come out here publicly and say, I don't always use sunscreen. I think the sun is healing. There, I said it. I think we're really going to unpack how crunchy Jamie is via this podcast. I think that mindful sun exposure is really smart. I think that when you're not mindful about it is stupid. Okay. I love the sun, but I'm also aware of its awesome power. Okay. So take everything with a grain of salt. But traditional sunscreens are chock full of things that could be affecting your period, that could be affecting your fertility, that could cause cancer, that could be affecting your thyroid. So if you are a sunscreen wearing person and if something you wear religiously, then I would highly recommend switching over to a mineral version. Again, I will have some swaps for you. We'll get to that in a minute. Preservatives. These are in everything. Think about the olden days, right? And this is how I filter through a lot of stuff. In the olden days, you couldn't really have a loaf of bread sit on a shelf at a grocery store for longer than a week, maybe two, before it started molding. So in order to mass produce bread, they have to put some sort of preservative in it. Otherwise, it'd be moldy before it even got to the consumer. But it's also included in stuff like makeup products. There has to be a preservative in there so they don't mold. Again, we don't want mold happening. And then dyes, which of course are in a bunch of makeup products. That's what changes the color, but that's also in a lot of candy products. That's also in your mustard and in your pickles. You know, there's yellow dye in literally almost every single pickle brand in HEB. There's only one pickle brand that we can find that does not have yellow 6 in it. Why? I don't care the color of my pickles. Why are you putting that in there? Again, if reading labels feels overwhelming, stick to one of the earlier two things that we talked about, either the Yuka app or if I can't read it, I can't eat it. That's a pretty clear guideline to go off of. The next thing that you can do is make conscious eating choices. Make choices to start eating well. That means eating organic and or whole foods. If you'd like a list of the Dirty Dozen or the Clean 15 through EWG's website, I will leave a link for that down below or in the notes. A good rule of thumb that we use here is if I can't make it at home, then we probably shouldn't be buying it from the grocery store. Another idea or methodology behind this is shop the outer shelves. Try not to go down the middle if possible. All the processed foods at the grocery store probably have a preservative in them, probably have a whole list of EDCs in them. But I know some of y'all still really want to get down with some Doritos. So again, God gave us good filters. You do you. Figure out your best rhythm, all right? But if you shop the outer ring of the store, you are far less likely to run into EDCs, especially if you go organic with a lot of those. Secondary to that is water. Water quality is of the utmost importance. There are PFAS in water. There is, obviously, we saw something about a lot of EDCs being in groundwater. Any of the products that are used in these big plants that are released into the air will find their way into the water. So purifying your water is really important. You can use reverse osmosis water system. Those are going to be the most expensive. You're going to want to find ones that like re-implement minerals back in through the RO though. We are a Berkey family. There was a little bit of controversy about the Berkey filters recently, not filtering out as much as they claim. I haven't done a deep dive into that. We're still using the Berkey filters and loving it. Now, it is an expensive investment, especially because we have the 5-gallon tank. Let me tell you, it's not cheap. And then we have to swap out the filters every once in a while. We also have an additional filter that gets out fluoride and arsenic because you need to watch out for arsenic in your water. And no, unfortunately, a Brit is not going to cut it. Unfortunately, most of the water filters out there that you're going to find at Target or Walmart are not even going to come close. They may filter out some things, but nowhere near as much as you need to get out of there. However, just even taking the step away from buying plastic water bottles could be really helpful. You could find a filtered water station in your area. There are a couple workarounds for this, but of course, the gold standard, the best that you could do, some sort of reverse osmosis system and or a Berkey. We also have hopes to get a whole house water filter, so we don't have to worry about our shower water or our bath water or our cooking water. I mean, yeah, as this is unraveling, you realize how far this goes, right? But that is probably anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000, I think, for our house. It's about 2,100 square feet. The next thing you can do is cleaner. Again, to make sure I'm not sounding like a total hypocrite, there is a bottle of Windex concentrate under my kitchen sink right now. We bought it a long time ago. I honestly don't know why it's still there, but it's there. And there are other chemical cleaners that we still have. I cannot get past the toilet bowl gel cleaner. I can't figure out a good replacement for that. So if you have one, please let me know. I can't get past that one, especially because our house is like 50 years old and the toilet's stained like that. I can't figure that one out. But all the other cleaners I've slowly replaced over the years, and I've actually rounded up quite a few that I really, really love. I keep referencing to something that I'll talk about later. There is a list of products of clean swaps or less toxic alternatives that I've put together that I use and absolutely love and highly recommend. You can, of course, go anywhere on the internet and find tons of humans that are talking about this. You do not need to purchase off of my affiliate links. You can literally just Google for clean or non-toxic alternatives. But if you're here and you trust me and you would like to just use what I have presented for you, I've collected them all together into a guide for you to make your life hopefully a lot easier. But as a quick rundown, we use Branch Basics for all-purpose cleaning. I know a lot of people talk about like the DIY vinegar cleaner. We have granite countertops, so we can't do that. The acid eats away at the finish of it. I use a glass cleaner from Azure Standard, as well as a microfiber cloth anytime I'm cleaning glass or mirrors. Murphy's soap oil is not completely non-toxic, but it's a lot less toxic, so we use that on wood and on our floors. Terry cloths replace disposable paper towels, vinegar and baking soda, and Castile soap. You're also going to want to cook smarter. Any nonstick pan you have, covered in EDCs. Okay. And then that's just slowly get into your food. Not to mention if the coating goes away and then it's just raw aluminum, which I think also technically falls as an endocrine disruptor. Remember Prairie Girl. Okay. Remember her cooking over an open flame in her cast iron skillet? Like a cowgirl, right? Cast iron is fantastic. Now I know there are some of you that might be like, what about iron overload? Listen, I can't control everything. The alternative to that would be stainless steel. I am not gifted in cooking with stainless steel. I love my cast iron. Okay. So that's where I'm at. So we're not tackling iron overload right now. And the rest of you are like, oh my gosh, there's more. Don't worry about it. Let's just get the chemicals out of this first, okay? And then we can have more conversations as we go on. Cast iron or stainless steel. The cast iron builds up something called seasoning. It's basically a layer covering the entire pan that makes it non-porous and therefore non-stick. It's fantastic. We cook eggs on them all the time. Stainless steel, you need to let preheat for quite a few minutes until the entirety of the pan is heated through, and then it becomes non-stick. So you can add your oil, fry eggs in it, and it will be absolutely fantastic. But the allure of the non-stick ones is because they're easier to clean, right? Well, if you treat those other two options well by continuing to season your cast iron and or heating up your stainless steel properly, then you don't have to worry about sticking at all anyways. Next thing you can do is store cuter. Put things in glass or ceramic. If you want to take water with you on the road, maybe try a copper water bottle or a glass one. We use reusable glass water bottles here in our house because 1, it's a lot cheaper than buying plastic water bottles. 2, we actually can use our filtered Berkey water in them. And 3, they're cuter. Thank you. And they're cheaper in the long run. You buy them once and you reuse them over and over and over again. I also try really hard to store a lot of things in mason jars. However, I am notorious for moving my fruit from one packaging into like the little plastic like fruit containers with the little filter thing at the bottom so the water can drip down. I love them and I find them so aesthetically pleasing. I wish there was a glass version of those because I would use the heck out of those bad boys, but I don't think they exist. And like I love ceramic berry baskets, but they don't fit well. So listen to me making excuses. Just store cuter. Tends to be a better option. Yes, of course, if it comes to you in plastic, it's probably been exposed to microplastics. You can't control what happened before it got to you, right? But any sort of long-term storage or bulk storage, try to get it into glass if you can. And last but most certainly not least, knock it off. No sense. No sense nonsense, okay? Fragrances are such, oh my gosh. This one, it's so hard because we love it when something smells good. I love when something smells good, right? When burning a fall candle, I still do it. I still burn pumpkin candles, okay? They give me headaches now because I've kind of like detoxed my body from them. So anytime I light one of those bad boys up, especially because as I'm recording this, it's like mid-end August. So it's right there. It's right there. It's 106 outside today, but we are right there. So I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to burn them, okay? But I'm going to burn it a lot more infrequently. And you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to use cleaners that have a bunch of scents in them. I'm not going to wear perfume on the daily. I'm going to make sure whatever I have that's scented is probably going to be scented with essential oils, which also there's another rabbit hole with that one. Sometimes they're not so great for your body. And a lot of people have a lot of things to say about that as well. That also includes Glade plugins. I cannot tell you how awful it is now that we've like stepped away from them to then go to an Airbnb where they have a plugin in somewhere and we can't find it and we can't unplug it. And the whole thing is just like cloying. If you really want your house to smell good, might I recommend an alternative? What you could do, my mom taught me this years ago as one of her hostessing hacks. You take a cotton, like a Q-tip, and you drop a couple drops of an essential oil on it and rub it on top of the light bulb, and it acts as its own little mini diffuser. You do it right before people get there, and it smells so good. The heat of the light bulb will slowly warm up the oil and release the scent into the room. Of course, you could also use a diffuser for that, but that's like money. So you can just put on top of your light bulb. This is a heavy topic, and it's so sad. It's so sad. Because you'd like to think that these things have been tested or regulated or checked to make sure that they're not cancerous or not causing harm to anyone's body. You'd like to walk down the cleaning aisle and go, I can pick up any of this and we'll be fine. But we can't because there isn't any sort of regulation on this stuff. And that is disheartening. And that's frustrating. And that really makes you want to ask questions. And it really grinds my gears to be told, I sound like Jennifer, makes me want a hot dog real bad. And if you are in that and you're overwhelmed by this process, remember small steps, baby steps. Breed what you can, swap what you can when you can. Be guided by your inner prairie girly. Keep it as simple as possible. And remember that God gave you a really, really, really good filter. You're still alive. You're still kicking. This is not going to end you. But any swaps that we can make to make our time here on this earth a little bit healthier and a whole lot longer, and maybe with a couple more kids running around, if you're into that kind of thing, I think is worth it. Thank you guys so much for listening. I know this is a really heavy subject. If you have more follow-up questions, please feel free to drop them down below. If you're watching the YouTube version, you can also shoot me a DM over on Instagram. I love hearing from you guys. The Jamie Wolfer is where I'm at over on Instagram. If you are enjoying this podcast so far, if I may be so bold, could you go over somewhere, wherever you're listening to this, and leave it a 5-star review? It's basically just a way of telling the podcast people that you like what I'm doing. And it's a way of providing a metric to potential sponsors one day, if we ever get to that point. But really, it's just a little affirmation of letting me know that you guys like what I'm doing over here and you want me to keep going. Because guess what? I'm going to. So So those 5-star reviews sure help. So that's what we have for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening or watching. If you are over on YouTube, I appreciate it so much. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're at, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, I don't know, anywhere where podcasts are played. Go over there and subscribe because I want to make sure that you get a notification every time I upload one of these bad boys. Because listen, we are now a month into this and we're still going strong, baby. If you want to have any of the downloads that I mentioned earlier, they'll either be in the description box or the show notes for you to latch on to. That's download. The downloads will be there for you to download. Okay, and until next time, bye guys. Oh gosh, someone get me off the internet.